My name is Evan Taylor, and I am 33 years old. On paper, that sentence comes dressed in tidy prestige. Chief Financial Officer of a Fortune 500 company, the youngest person ever to occupy that office at our firm, the quiet one on the top floor who never raises her voice because numbers don't require volume to be persuasive. In reality, the part that matters is simpler. I was the woman who learned at 2:17 a.m. that the person I loved had married someone else while drunk under fluorescent chapel lights in Las Vegas. The phone's buzz woke me like a soft, insistent insect trapped beneath glass. One pulse, then another. The room was dark except for the digital clock and the street lamp leaking a white rectangle onto my bedroom wall. I didn't panic. Panic is for people who still believe they can change the shape of a thing by holding it tighter. I have spent a decade learning that when information arrives, good or bad, you don't argue with it. You read it. You reconcile it. And then you act. I reached across the cool expanse of the bed and found the phone by touch. The screen exploded into brightness. A message preview. A photo. My boyfriend, Liam Carter, had flown to Las Vegas for a 3-day marketing conference with his boss, Vanessa Vance, the charismatically ruthless kind of leader who calls catastrophe an opportunity and means it. He'd texted me updates earlier that night. A keynote he said was surprisingly useful, a crowded happy hour, a promise to call later that never came. The image loaded in a heartbeat that felt like an hour. They were there together, front and center, staged before a plastic arch tangled with faux lilies and twinkle lights that blinked like cheap stars. Liam's tie was crooked. Vanessa wore a white dress that looked purchased for speed and abandon. An Elvis impersonator hovered at the edge of the frame, mid-benediction. Liam's arm draped around Vanessa's shoulder, his mouth wide with the grin I used to think meant joy, but now read as the open maw of appetite. On her finger, an oversized crystal ring caught the camera flash and scattered it like shattered glass. Above the image, the caption, "Married my boss, don't wait up." There are moments that rewrite your nervous system. The room didn't tilt. The world didn't end. My body performed the familiar rituals of shock, a narrowing of sound, a sense that my blood had moved into my palms, but my mind simply organized. I saved the photo to a secure folder, then the text thread, then took a screenshot of the timestamp. I watched my own hands, steady as if they belonged to someone else. A lot of people would call and scream. I thought of the first time Liam kissed me, how he'd tasted like citrus and new plans, and of the last time we'd argued about nothing, standing in our kitchen while the kettle sang and he said I managed emotions like an accountant. I almost laughed. The kettle had always been the loudest thing in our house. My reply required one word. I typed it, saw how small and clean it looked against the mess he'd sent, then pressed send. Perfect. The message left blue and immediate, a bead of mercury rolling downhill. I set the phone down and turned on the bedside lamp. Light washed the room into honesty. Neat nightstand, one sleeping plant, a hardcover novel open belly down, a sweater on the chair I never wore because the sleeves felt like a promise I couldn't keep. There is a relief in devastation when you are built like me. Decisions become obvious. In the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed like a low-grade witness. I drank a glass of water I didn't want and let the cold sit in my chest. My home office opened like a mouth waiting for words. I sat, logged in. The monitor's glow replaced the moon. In the reflection, I looked exactly like myself. Hair braided for sleep, t-shirt, no makeup, the woman Liam had once called unshakable, like it was praise, then later unfeeling, like it was a charge. I pulled up our joint accounts. 3 credit cards, each with limits that assumed we were reasonable people. The charges told the story without embellishment. First-class flights to Vegas, an upgraded suite at the Bellagio, a dinner whose tip alone could have paid a month's rent for the person refilling water glasses, a cash advance at a casino ATM, a charge at a boutique I knew sold last-minute bridal detritus from neon racks. Liam always said he hated waste. The screen made a liar of him in itemized lines. My cursor hovered over report card lost, stolen. Not yet. Not here. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, organized everything into a folder labeled with the date, then backed it up where only I could find it. Evidence wanted sequence. Sequence wanted meaning. Meaning wanted action. You spend your life thinking you are made of choices, and then one night you discover you are made of preparation. My father used to tell me that control is not about having all the answers. It's about choosing the order in which you ask the questions. He died when I was 24, and grief rewired my instincts. When the world wobbles, I build a level. At 3:00 a.m., I opened a private browser window and searched for live streams from Las Vegas wedding chapels within a 2-mile radius of the Bellagio. I have never believed in luck, only in probabilities tightening into facts. The first few sites were glossy catalogs of bad decisions pretending to be romance. The fifth had a Watch Live tab and an archive. I scanned the thumbnails, names stamped along the bottom edge. When I saw Vance, I felt nothing so theatrical as satisfaction, just the quiet click of a puzzle piece finally finding its neighbor. The video quality was terrible. The audio was worse. I watched anyway. The Elvis said vows that sounded like parody carved into ritual. Liam tried to put the ring on the wrong hand. Vanessa laughed the laugh I'd once called expensive. They signed a certificate under a plastic palm whose fronds shivered in conditioned air. I took the file. I took the still frames. I took the date and time and the chapel's business license number from a footer most people never see. Somewhere between downloads, my phone buzzed again. A text from Liam that contained nothing but a string of laughing emojis. Then, "You awake? LOL?" Then, nothing. He was probably already asleep, mouth open, the ring catching neon while the city burned electricity to keep other people's illusions alight. There is a myth that vengeance tastes sweet. In my experience, clarity tastes like nothing. It simply frees the throat so you can swallow the next thing. I turned from the computer and looked at the window. Dawn would be a rumor for hours yet. The city was a diagram of quiet rectangles, every neighbor's secrets tucked into drywall and drapes. I tried to locate the precise moment my love for Liam had become obligation, and then obligation had thinned to habit. The effort felt like inventorying a warehouse after a fire. On my desk was a small framed photo from last autumn. Liam and me on a ferry, hair whipped by November wind, cheeks pink with cold and happiness. I picked it up and studied it like evidence, too. He'd taken the picture with his free hand. I had been leaning into him, laughing at something I can't remember. I set it face down. There were calls to make, but not yet. Legal is a scalpel you wield after you map the anatomy. I opened a blank document and began a list titled Immediate. Secure evidence, texts, screenshots, video, charges. Confirm chapel's legitimacy and certificate authenticity. Establish timeline, flight receipts, hotel check-in, check-in, chapel booking. Review state statutes on bigamy, relevant jurisdiction, probable cause. Identify corporate policy breaches, supervisor-subordinate relationship, misuse of funds. Determine points of leverage. I added airport with the question mark, noted media, and underlined it once. I am not cruel, I told myself. Cruelty is careless. This would be careful. By 3:40 a.m., the folder was immaculate. The plan was a skeleton with places to attach muscle. I let my shoulders drop for the first time. The house creaked like an animal turning over in its sleep. On the nightstand in the bedroom, my phone lay face up, the word perfect, still the last thing either of us had said. People think betrayal is a sudden drop, a trapdoor underfoot. Mostly, it is scaffolding erected slowly when you are not looking. I replayed our last month together, his new cologne, the way he kept his phone face down, the sudden, performative tenderness after long meetings with Vanessa. I had noticed each note and filed it as background noise because noticing too acutely felt disloyal. That was my error. I would not repeat it. I stood, returned to the kitchen, and set water to boil. The kettle took its time. Steam unspooled into the lamplight and curled. I poured tea and wrapped my hands around the mug to convince my body I inhabited it. Somewhere, in a hotel, the Bellagio's marketing copy probably called Timeless, Liam slept the sleep of the newly and unlawfully wed. Somewhere, Vanessa dreamt of promotions with a ring still biting her skin. At 4:02 a.m., I opened my contacts and scrolled past names I'd organized by function and jurisdiction. My thumb paused above Sophie Reed. I didn't tap. Not yet. There is a right first sentence for every battle. Mine would wait for sunrise. I returned to bed, not to sleep, but to lie in the shape I would leave behind. The ceiling was an honest white. The room smelled faintly of bergamot and paper. My heartbeat calmed into even math. Somewhere down the block, a truck coughed, a door slammed, a life continued without me in it. I stared at the rectangle of light on the wall until dawn spilled fresh ink over it. At 6:59 a.m., my alarm sounded as if this were any other day. I silenced it and picked up the phone. For the first time since the message, I allowed myself to feel anger, thin and precise, like a filament pulled tight. I opened Sophie's contact card and hit call. "Evan?" she said, voice thick with sleep. "I need 5 minutes," I replied. "I have evidence of a crime and a plan." I listened to the quick intake of her breath, the transformation of tone as she awakened into the person the world paid for. "Go on," she said. I did. When Sophie Reed is fully awake, her tone changes from friend to weapon. "Start from the top," she said. I recited the facts like data points. The message, the photo, the timestamp, the Vegas location, the transaction trail. She didn't interrupt, just the occasional click of her keyboard cutting through the line. When I finished, there was a pause. Then her voice, cold, clear, surgical. "Evan, this isn't just infidelity, it's bigamy." "I know." "And you have evidence?" "Screenshots, receipts, video." "Good." Another pause. "Then we're going to make him regret ever thinking you'd play victim." I'd met Sophie 5 years ago during a merger negotiation that had turned bloody. She was the kind of attorney whose smile alone could make people sign confessions. Now, hearing her voice steady on the other end, I felt the faintest warmth of something that almost resembled safety. "First step," she said, "do not contact him again. Not a word. Silence is your leverage. Second, go online and freeze every joint account immediately. Credit cards, checking, savings, everything. He's probably spending your money right now." I was already halfway there. As she spoke, I pulled up the banking portal and scrolled through the carnage. Hotel suites, designer champagne, jewelry stores. I hovered over each transaction like a surgeon tracing old scars. "Done," I said. "Good," Sophie replied. "Now, next, I'm calling a contact in the district attorney's office. You'll need to provide the wedding video and text messages. He'll be arrested for bigamy once he's back in state. But before that," her voice shifted, the sound of someone savoring precision, "you need to make sure his career dies before his reputation even realizes it's been hit." That was the part she didn't have to explain. The morning light arrived slowly, reluctant to enter the house. I sat at my desk with the blinds half closed, letting the world narrow to the glow of my laptop. Emails began to stack in my inbox. Corporate chatter, meeting invites, digital noise from people who still believe the day was ordinary. I clicked on one from David Chen, the head of internal audit and compliance, a reminder about quarterly reviews. David was methodical, incorruptible, and allergic to scandal. He once suspended an executive for charging a single spa treatment to a company card. Liam and Vanessa's Little Vegas adventure had charged an entire honeymoon to client development. I drafted a message to him, short and deliberate. "David, urgent compliance issue, need to speak privately. Evidence attached." Then I hesitated, hovering over send. Not yet. There was still choreography to consider. Every move timed to collapse on itself like controlled demolition. I called Sophie back. "You'll have what you need within an hour," I said. "But I want this done quietly first. I don't want him to see it coming." "Evan," she said, "quiet is how we build momentum. Then we make it loud." By mid-morning, the silence between Liam and me had grown into its own creature. My phone lit up with messages I didn't open. "Ev, did you see the photo? It was a joke." "Call me. You're overreacting." "Cards aren't working. Did you freeze them? Seriously?" "This isn't funny, Evan." The timestamps painted a picture of panic in real time. When his tone shifted from arrogance to desperation, "They won't let us check out. Vanessa's cards are declined too. What did you do?" I finally turned the phone face down and muted it. Every line of credit, every joint account, every automated bill, frozen. The system I'd built to protect us now protected me. It was strangely intimate, the act of dismantling our life together. The same password that once paid for dinners and plane tickets now suffocated him through a single keystroke. Sophie called again around noon. "I spoke with the DA's office, she said. They're very interested, but will need a little more proof than a text and a video. I have their booking receipt from the chapel site, I said. They used his corporate card. She exhaled softly, admiration disguised as professionalism. Perfect. That means company misconduct, too. That word, perfect, hit differently now. It had been my reply to Liam's text, a one-word weapon. Now it was becoming prophecy. I left the house around 1. The city was awake and indifferent. Couples in coffee lines, delivery bikes, children tugging at parents' hands. I moved through it all with a stillness that felt almost cinematic, like I'd stepped outside my own life to watch from a distance. At the bank, the clerk behind the counter smiled without understanding what she was witnessing. I need to report potential fraud, I said. Joint account. Both cards compromised. She nodded, clicked her keyboard, asked routine questions. Within minutes, the financial umbilical cord between Liam and me was severed. When she handed me the confirmation slip, I thanked her and smiled. It felt strange to realize how easy destruction could look to an outsider. A transaction, a signature, a receipt. That evening, I returned home to silence thick enough to feel alive. I made tea and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me. Every revolution sounded like time-erasing noise. Then my phone buzzed again, a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail transcribed itself automatically on the screen. Ms. Taylor, this is Detective Morales from the District Attorney's Office. Ms. Reed forwarded your evidence. We'll need you to bring physical copies Monday morning for the file. I played the message once, then again. A part of me wanted to cry, not from sadness, but from the dizzying order of it all. Every betrayal had a corresponding ledger entry. He lied, I acted. He gambled, I calculated. That night, Sophie called one last time. Evan, I'm sending a private investigator to Vegas. She'll verify the marriage license and identify any additional assets Liam accessed while there. When he lands back home, the police will meet him at the gate. Publicly? Yes, Sophie said. Very publicly. The sound of the word pleased me and frightened me in equal measure. Thank you, I whispered. You don't need to thank me, she replied. You did all the hard parts yourself. After the call ended, I walked to the window. Across the street, a couple laughed over takeout boxes. Their joy looked ordinary, which meant it was rare. I wondered when I'd last felt something as simple as laughter without calculation. At 11 p.m., another text arrived from Liam. Vanessa's freaking out. I told her it's a misunderstanding. Please, Evan, undo whatever you did. I stared at it for a long time, then wrote back 3 words. Talk to your wife. The typing indicator blinked, then disappeared. He didn't reply again. I set the phone aside, closed my laptop, and leaned back in the chair. The house was still, the air cool, the silence absolute. For the first time in years, my heartbeat matched the rhythm of my decisions. Tomorrow, I would take the evidence to David Chen, and by the time Liam stepped off that plane, his career, his money, and his name would already belong to history. The next morning, the city looked washed clean by consequence. The sky had the color of unpolished steel, cold even, unbothered. I left home earlier than usual, dressed in the same slate gray suit I wore for crisis board meetings. It felt fitting. The office was empty when I arrived. That quiet, cavernous stillness before other people's noise fills the hallways. I liked it that way. I unlocked my door, set my bag down, and powered on the computer. The screen came alive with graphs and numbers, the language I understood best. Precision, accountability, no emotion, only balance sheets and truth. By 6:45, I walked toward the compliance department. The hum of fluorescent lights echoed faintly off the glass walls. David Chen was already there, coffee mug in hand, adjusting his tie in the reflection of his office window. He looked surprised to see me. Evan, you're early. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't, I said evenly. Something's happened that you need to see. He gestured toward the conference room table, curiosity flickering across his face. Is this about the Q3 audit? Worse, I said. Much worse. I handed him a folder, the one I'd printed at dawn, labeled Ethics Breach, Vance and Carter. Inside, screenshots, receipts, and a USB drive. David opened the file and skimmed the first few pages. Then his brow tightened. Is this real? He asked. It's verifiable, I said. Vegas Chapel, time-stamped, hotel charges on company cards, unauthorized expenses disguised as client travel. He pressed his thumb and forefinger to the bridge of his nose, his tell when something truly angered him. Vanessa Vance, he murmured, head of marketing. And Liam Carter, I added. My boyfriend. That made him look up sharply. Christ, Evan. I know, I said, but this isn't personal anymore. It's structural. He nodded, switching to professional detachment. All right, give me 10 minutes. I waited in the hallway while David called the chairman. Through the frosted glass, his shadow moved back and forth, sharp gestures punctuating clipped sentences. I caught fragments. Violation of policy, subordinate relationship, evidence confirmed. Then silence. Then a single word. Understood. When he came out, his face was unreadable. The board is convening an emergency meeting in an hour, he said. We'll handle this by the book. His tone was neutral, but I could tell. There was admiration buried under the professionalism. Evan, he added, lowering his voice, you know this could end both of their careers? That's the point, I said quietly. He nodded once, and the conversation ended there. While the board assembled via video conference, I sat alone in my office, staring at the skyline. The world outside went on. Commuters flooding intersections, sunlight slicing between towers. Inside, everything felt slowed, suspended. My phone buzzed again. Liam, of course. I'm serious, Evan. This is spiraling. Vanessa's panicking. The hotel says our cards are flagged. Fix it before you regret this. Regret. He'd said that word before, months ago, during one of our fights about boundaries at work. You don't understand ambition, he'd told me, voice sharp. Vanessa believes in me. She pushes me. He'd looked at me then the way some men look at women they've already decided to underestimate, kindly, like he was offering grace. That memory broke across me now like glass. Ambition had become the rope they'd hang themselves with. At exactly 8:15, the emergency board meeting began. I wasn't invited. Protocol. But I didn't need to be. David would handle the evidence, and the company's reaction would follow predictable math. By 9 o'clock, my inbox pinged. Subject: immediate suspension. Vanessa Vance and Liam Carter. From Board Secretariat. Effective immediately. Both employees are suspended pending full investigation into violations of company policy. Access to internal systems and facilities is revoked. I exhaled slowly. Not victory, just inevitability. Within minutes, security entered the building. 2 men in black suits collected Vanessa's belongings from her office across the hall. One carried a box labeled personal items. Through the glass, I could see the framed motivational quote she always kept on her wall, "Dare greatly." The irony wasn't lost on me. By noon, whispers filled the floor. Did you hear? Vance and Carter, gone. They said ethics violation. Someone reported them anonymously. I walked past the clusters of gossip without slowing. When people nodded hello, I nodded back. The calm CFO, unbothered, efficient. No one suspected. That was the beauty of control. Done properly, it's invisible. Still, a part of me ached. Beneath the discipline, there was something raw and shaking. Not love, that had died before Vegas, but loss of illusion. Loss of the version of myself who believed loyalty could protect anyone from betrayal. That night, Sophie called. It's done, she said. The DA's office has everything. They've confirmed the marriage certificate is legally binding in Nevada. So it's bigamy, I said. Exactly, a felony. The warrant will be active by the time he lands back home. I stared at the city lights outside my window. They'll arrest him at the airport? Yes, and Vanessa will face corporate misconduct charges. The media loves a story like this. I could almost see it already. The headlines, the spectacle, but Sophie's tone softened. Evan, are you sure you wanted this public? You've already won. I thought about that. The money frozen, the careers ended, the marriage exposed. But this wasn't about winning. It was about symmetry. He had humiliated me publicly. The world should see how he undid himself. Yes, I said, public. After the call, I wandered into the kitchen. The same silence as before, but heavier now, filled with echoes. I poured a glass of wine, but it tasted like metal. I thought of Liam, probably in some Vegas hotel room, pacing, watching his life collapse from a screen he couldn't control. He used to tell me I was too composed, that emotions made people authentic. He used to say, "Evan, you can't spreadsheet your way through pain." He was wrong. You can, if you build the formulas correctly. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Local marketing executive suspended amid corporate scandal. No names yet, but the image blurred in the background looked familiar. Vanessa's company portrait cropped in half. The dominoes had started to fall. I powered off my phone, closed the curtains, and sat in the dark for a long time. The satisfaction wasn't loud. It was quiet, heavy, like the last page of a book closing on its own. Tomorrow they would fly home. Tomorrow the final act would begin. Sunday evening. The kind of dusk that feels rehearsed. The air still. The sky bruised violet. The city holding its breath. The television hummed softly in the background, tuned to a local news channel I never watched before tonight. I wasn't waiting for entertainment. I was waiting for consequence. Liam's flight was due in at 8:25 p.m. Sophie had coordinated everything. The police would have the warrant ready. The airport's security team had been alerted. And somewhere in that terminal, standing behind the velvet barrier near arrivals, Jason Vance, Vanessa's real husband, was waiting too. I hadn't orchestrated that last part. Sophie had. She called it poetic alignment. Jason had been unaware of his wife's conference trip until Sophie's investigator called him. She'd sent him the evidence, the wedding video, the credit card trail, the marriage certificate. His reply had been 6 words. "I'll be there when they land." The clock read 8:14 when the live feed switched. A helicopter camera zoomed in on the airport tarmac, its spotlight cutting across the belly of a landing plane. The reporter's voice was crisp, too professional to hide excitement. "We're receiving reports that 2 local business executives returning from Las Vegas may be detained upon arrival due to ongoing criminal and corporate investigations." I muted the sound. I didn't need commentary. I knew the script by heart. The camera followed the line of passengers emerging from the gate. Then I saw them. Even through pixel blur, I knew the shapes of their bodies. Liam looked worn, disheveled, his shirt wrinkled like regret. Vanessa walked beside him, her designer sunglasses failing to disguise panic. "They didn't know yet." The first officer approached, speaking quietly. Liam frowned, confused. Then another officer stepped forward. Behind them, a tall man in a dark coat, Jason, moved closer, his face set in pale fury. Even from hundreds of miles away, I could feel the shift when realization hit them. Liam's posture changed first, confusion curdling into disbelief, then panic. Vanessa's expression fractured into the kind of composure only powerful people lose once. The audio crackled back on for a moment. "Sir, are you Liam Carter?" "Yes." "Why?" "You're under arrest for bigamy." He tried to speak, his voice lost beneath the rustle of uniforms and the metallic click of cuffs. Then Jason stepped forward, every inch the betrayed husband, and slapped Vanessa across the face with a sound so sharp it cut through the crowd noise. The reporter gasped, the camera jolted. Jason's voice carried through the chaos. "Congratulations, Mrs. Vance. Enjoy your new husband." The crowd erupted, shouts, flashes, phones recording. I didn't move, didn't smile, didn't flinch, just watched. There's a silence that follows justice. It isn't peaceful. It's dense. I muted the television again and leaned back in my chair. My reflection hovered on the screen. Calm, detached, almost ghostly. I thought of the first time I'd met Vanessa at a company retreat in Napa. She'd been charming then, dazzling. She'd told me over wine that women like us should never play small. I'd believed her. I'd mistaken ambition for sisterhood. Now, watching her escorted through an airport terminal under police escort, I realized she'd been right. She never played small. She just played stupid. At 9:03 p.m., Sophie called. "Did you see it?" she asked, voice trembling with adrenaline. "Yes." Every network picked it up, local, national, even the business channels. Vanessa and Liam are both trending. "Good," I said softly. She hesitated. "You don't sound satisfied." "I'm not sure satisfaction is the word," I replied. "It's math. The equation balanced." "You're allowed to feel something, Evan." "I am," I said, "just not what you think." There was a long pause on the line, then Sophie's voice softened. You know, you just destroyed 2 people in one weekend. I didn't destroy them, I said. They pressed the button. I just made sure the system responded. After the call, I stepped out onto my balcony. The city lights shimmered like fractured code beneath me. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Maybe theirs, maybe someone else's. I thought of Liam sitting in a holding room right now, fingers still marked where handcuffs had been. Would he think of me? Would he finally understand that love and mercy aren't the same thing? I wanted to say yes, but truthfully, no. Men like Liam didn't think beyond the next fix of attention. He'd probably tell himself I'd overreacted, that I was vindictive. He'd ignore the part where I'd given him 6 years of patience before giving him one weekend of justice. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. A text, an unknown number. You win. I hope it feels worth it. No name, but I knew. I stared at it for a moment, then typed back. It was never about winning, it was about ending. The message showed delivered, then nothing. Later that night, I poured myself another glass of wine, left it untouched on the counter, and sat at the dining table. The house felt both too big and too quiet, like a museum for things that no longer mattered. In the background, the television cycled through the same loop of footage, Vanessa crying as she was led through the terminal, Liam turning away from the cameras, his face half hidden by his jacket, Jason walking out without looking back. 3 people, 1 decision, 1 text. I shut the TV off. The silence roared. For a long moment, I just sat there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the same sound that had filled the house 2 nights ago when I first saw the photo. Only now it felt different. Not a witness to loss, but a witness to completion. When I finally stood, the clock read 12:42 a.m. I gathered the printed documents into a box and slid it into my filing cabinet. Label, case closed. Before turning off the lights, I caught my reflection in the darkened window. Same face, same calm expression. But something beneath it had shifted. I whispered to the empty room. Consequences don't need witnesses, they just need timing. And for the first time in days, I smiled. Small, private, almost kind. Tomorrow I would return to work, and the world would pretend nothing had ever happened. It's been 1 year, 12 months since the night everything I thought was permanent turned into proof that nothing is. People like to believe that time heals. It doesn't. It just rearranges the debris until you can walk through it without tripping. I still wake early, old habit. I make tea instead of coffee now. The bitterness of coffee reminds me of long mornings spent waiting for someone who was never really coming home. Tea is quieter, predictable. It asks nothing from you except stillness. My apartment looks different too. Bigger somehow, though nothing has changed but what's missing. The framed photo of Liam and me on the ferry is gone. The empty wall feels cleaner without the pretense. Some nights I still catch myself reaching for the other pillow. Then I remember, the absence isn't loneliness. It's evidence. The world kept moving after the scandal. It always does. Vanessa's downfall became corporate folklore. She was fired within 24 hours of her arrest. Her husband, Jason, divorced her publicly and swiftly. The tabloids fed on it for months, the wedding that lasted 48 hours. She sold her house, disappeared from social media, and according to Sophie's investigator, now lives quietly somewhere in Arizona, consulting for a small agency that doesn't know her history. Liam's story was messier. After the charges, his mugshot circulated online for weeks. The company terminated his contract for gross misconduct, and his reputation, once slick, ambitious, magnetic, dissolved overnight. He tried to claim the Vegas wedding was a drunken joke, but the marriage certificate and video made that impossible. The DA reduced the felony to a misdemeanor in exchange for a plea deal, but the damage was permanent. He lost everything: job, savings, reputation. Even his family distanced themselves. He moved out of state. The last I heard from Sophie, he was working at an airport cafe. Fitting somehow. As for me, the company survived the scandal, and in the vacuum it left, I was promoted. The board admired how calmly I handled the crisis. Their words, not mine. They said I was an example of integrity under pressure. I smiled, thanked them, and accepted. Integrity. Funny word. It means wholeness. But I'm not sure I've felt whole since. From the outside, my life looks better than ever. Executive office, higher salary, a reputation for decisiveness. But I've learned something no spreadsheet can record. Vengeance doesn't end stories. It freezes them. Sometimes during meetings, I catch myself staring out at the skyline, the same skyline that glowed through my window the night I typed perfect, and I wonder if I mistook justice for closure. It was raining the day I saw him again. 6 months after the scandal. I was on a business trip, walking through a terminal in Chicago, halfway between flights. I stopped at a small cafe to buy tea. The barista called out, "Next!" And when I looked up, I froze. Liam stood behind the counter, wearing a stained apron and a paper hat. His hair was shorter, his shoulders smaller. There was a tiredness in his eyes that used to be arrogance. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did, and pretended not to. I placed a $10 bill on the counter, took my drink, and said quietly, "Keep the change." For 1 second, he looked up. Our eyes met, brief, muted, heavy with recognition. No anger, no apology, just two ghosts acknowledging the same unfinished story. I turned and walked away before he could speak. That night in the hotel, I couldn't sleep. I replayed that moment, not out of nostalgia, but to examine it like evidence again. He had looked small but not ruined. Maybe that was my mistake, thinking ruin would satisfy me. It hadn't, because revenge doesn't fix betrayal. It only rearranges who gets to stand in the wreckage with their head held higher. A month later, Sophie invited me to dinner. She asked if I'd been seeing anyone. I laughed. "You mean emotionally, legally, or strategically?" She rolled her eyes. "Seriously, Evan, you've earned a life outside spreadsheets and court filings." "I'm not sure I'd know what to do with one," I said. But sometimes, when the city goes quiet and I catch the scent of rain through my window, I think of possibility. Not forgiveness exactly, but space. Maybe one day I'll fill it with something other than calculation. Last week, I deleted the folder labeled "Case Closed." All the screenshots, the receipts, the videos, gone. It wasn't forgiveness. It was inventory control. Keeping the evidence meant keeping the story alive, and I'd already lived it too long. I opened a new document, blank, untitled. For a moment, the emptiness of the page frightened me. Too clean, too unburdened. Then I began typing the first sentence I've allowed myself in a year that wasn't about loss or control. Some people play games thinking there are no rules. They forget. I write them. I saved it, closed my laptop, and sat in the dark. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon. Soft, almost distant. The storm passed without breaking. I poured the tea down the sink, turned off the lights, and whispered into the quiet, "Perfect."